Next on Currents News, the Kavanaugh countdown. The voting to confirm him to the Supreme Court could begin tomorrow, and the FBI has finished its report.
Pilgrims from Europe strengthen their faith in the Brooklyn Diocese as part of the 25th anniversary of the Magnificat. I'm Tim Hoffman, and that story is coming up.
The Pope telling the worldwide gathering of bishops at the Vatican's Youth Summit how important it is for them and the Church to listen to young people. Plus, authorities in Scotland are warning that flying the Vatican's flag in a so-called provocative manner could be a crime. The news starts right now. Good evening, everyone. I'm Liz Faublas. The Brett Kavanaugh nomination to the Supreme Court could be nearing a climax. The FBI has finished its new investigation. The report is being read by senators, and the voting process is set to begin tomorrow. Camila Bernal has details.
Senators who requested the supplemental FBI background check got what they requested, and I am ready to vote.
All 100 U.S. senators are being given the opportunity to review the FBI's supplemental background investigation report on Supreme Court nominee Brett Kavanaugh. But it may come down to what some key senators think of the report.
It's with the Senate now, but we feel very confident.
The White House has reviewed the report and is firmly behind Kavanaugh, as is Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell.
No, the facts do not support the allegations levied at Judge Kavanaugh's character. Instead, many of the facts actually support Judge Kavanaugh's strong, unequivocal denial.
But top Democrats say the investigation into Kavanaugh's past, including sexual assault allegations, is incomplete.
The most notable part of this report is what's not in it.
We are reiterating our call that the documents with proper redaction be made public.
But the FBI's report is not public and will likely never be. And some of those key undecided Republicans have already reviewed the report and said it appears thorough, suggesting that the Senate may move forward with the vote on Kavanaugh by this weekend.
I'll be proud to vote to advance this nomination tomorrow.
In Washington, Camila Bernal, Currents News.
The major summit to better connect the church and young people is in its second day, and the Pope was the headline speaker, telling the bishops of the world how important it is to listen. Melissa Butts reports.
The first session of the Youth Synod began in the Synod Hall. The very first step when all gathered inside was praying for God to guide these 3 weeks of assembly. Cardinal Sacco, Chaldean Patriarch, spoke on behalf of the Synod Fathers.
Noi siamo sicuri che le tempeste, per quanto siano forti, passeranno e la Chiesa uscirà più pura e più forte.
Pope Francis explained the Synod should be a time for sharing and, above all, for listening. He regretted that on too many occasions the voice of young people has not been taken into account.
Il cammino di preparazione a questo momento ha evidenziato una Chiesa in debito di ascolto, anche nei confronti dei giovani, che spesso dalla Chiesa si sentono non compressi nella loro originalità e quindi non accolti per quello che sono veramente e talvolta persino respinti.
He invited the elders to take the young seriously and also for the young not to believe they know everything. This is why he called for dialogue to be established.
Una Chiesa che non ascolta si mostra chiusa alla novità, chiusa alle sorprese di Dio e non potrà risultare credibile.
In his speech, the Pope also spoke of clericalism. He asked for none of the participants at the Synod to believe their vocation implies power rather than service. Finally, Pope Francis asked the Synod participants not to allow themselves to be carried away by pessimism. He ended it with a touch of humor, making this invitation to them.
Impegniamoci dunque nel cercare di frequentare il futuro e di far uscire da questo sinodo non solo un documento che generalmente viene letto da pochi e criticato da molti, ma soprattutto propositi pastorali concreti in grado di realizzare il compito del sinodo stesso.
In Rome, Melissa Butts, Currents News.
The Catholic Church is celebrating life in a special way this month. October is Respect Life Month. New York's Cardinal Timothy Dolan is in charge of pro-life activities for the U.S. bishops, and he pointed out in a letter that the occasion comes at a troubled time for the Church in the midst of the abuse scandal, writing, quote, "At such a time as this, we become more aware of the need for messengers of God's love and instruments of His healing." The Brooklyn Diocese is participating in a major evangelization event. Thousands of people are making a pilgrimage to Brooklyn for the Magnificat Day of Thanksgiving this Saturday. Some of the faithful are already in Brooklyn, and this morning Bishop DiMarzio was there to greet them. Currents News' Tim Hoffman reports.
The Bishop of Brooklyn, Nicholas DiMarzio, led pilgrims in prayer at St. James Cathedral Basilica this morning. The group, most of them visiting from Europe, are on pilgrimage to commemorate the 25th anniversary of the Magnificat.
It's really a missal, it's a meditation book, it has many things together, morning prayer, evening prayer. It gives people a kind of a vademecum. They keep it with them. It's small, put it in their pocket.
For these pilgrims, having the pocket-sized scripture allows them to strengthen their faith every day.
As a lay woman, Magnificat is very important because it allows me to pray with all the church in the world with the same texts and the same prayers.
The pilgrims received history lessons on some of Brooklyn's earliest Catholic churches and visited the city's iconic landmarks. They'll also have the opportunity to attend Mass with the Pope's ambassador to the United States, Archbishop Christophe Pierre. The Secretary for Evangelization and Catechesis in the Brooklyn Diocese, Ted Musco, says the pilgrimage leads up to the main event on Saturday, where thousands of other Catholics will join the group for a day of prayer.
We see people from all over the world gather at King's Theater to really celebrate the best that we have to offer the church, a true encounter of Jesus Christ in our own lives.
The strongest thing as Catholic, as Christians, is to be a community.
Tim Hoffman, Currents News.
And still ahead in this newscast, the leader of Brooklyn's evangelization team, Ted Musco, will be here to tell us more about this weekend's big event, so please stay tuned for that. Also in the news, Bishop DiMarzio met with priests of the diocese this week and addressed the sex abuse crisis. The bishop talked about the highly acclaimed Dallas Charter established by the U.S. Bishops' Conference in 2002 to identify and prevent the sexual abuse of minors. The bishop pointed out how effective the procedures of the charter have been since its adoption.
Since 2002, we've had only 2 reportable incidents of priests abusing, 2 in 16 years. It's finished. That's what the people have to know. Actually, the charter worked. And the charter was a lot of effort, a lot of money, a lot of things going into it, but it actually did work for the most part.
Bishop DiMarzio also explained that most of the abusers were ordained before 1970 and long before the U.S. Church adopted the Dallas Charter. As part of the 2002 charter, here are some of the important measures put in place to fight sexual abuse within the diocese. The Office of Victim Assistance. It's been established to help individuals who come forward with allegations. The office provides counseling, referrals for therapy, and other important resources. Also of note here, every employee of the diocese, including students, undergo mandatory training designed to spot the signs of abuse and how to stop it. The bishop meets with survivors. He listens to them carefully. One result of those talks is the annual Mass of Hope and Healing in the diocese. And the diocese also has a toll-free and confidential sexual abuse reporting line. That number is 888-634-4499. For more information, go to the Diocese of Brooklyn's website, dioceseofbrooklyn.org, and click on Protecting Our Children. The Justice Department has announced criminal charges against 7 Russian intelligence officers. They're accused of hacking, wire fraud, identity theft, and money laundering.
The defendants are charged with engaging in a lengthy and wide-ranging conspiracy to hack into private computers and networks around the world. The victims of this illegal activity are anti-doping organizations in the United States and abroad, Swiss and Dutch entities which investigate the use of chemical weapons, and as I mentioned, an important company in my own district, Westinghouse. Federal law makes it illegal to use hacking techniques such as spear phishing to gain access to protected computers and networks.
All 7 defendants are members of the GRU, a Russian intelligence agency within the military. DOJ officials say the alleged crimes were part of an effort to distract from Russia's state-sponsored doping program. We're getting the first look at images of a U.S. Navy ship seconds away from colliding with a Chinese destroyer last month. The USS Decatur was conducting a freedom of navigation operation in the South China Sea when it had an unsafe interaction with the Chinese warship. The Navy says the Chinese ship sailed aggressively toward the U.S. ship near the disputed Spratly Islands. Still ahead on Currents News, the Vatican flag offensive? Well, in one country it can be. And hundreds of homes in Indonesia with people inside sucked into the ground as Indonesians continue to feel the devastating effects of last week's earthquake. And a special visit by the First Lady, and she's bearing gifts. Do you have a story idea, something happening in your parish we should know about? We want to hear from you. Keep this email handy, newstips@thesalesmedia.org. We'll be right back. As Tim reported a few moments ago, the Magnificat Foundation is partnering with the Diocese of Brooklyn's evangelization team to bring the Magnificat Day of Thanksgiving to Brooklyn's King's Theater this weekend. Joining us now is the Secretariat for Evangelization for the Diocese, Theodore Musco. Ted, I'm going to call you Ted.
Great.
Thank you so much for being here with us. It's nice to see you. Thank you. Love having you here. Now, the Magnificat Day experience, it took over California. It took over Philadelphia, Memphis in recent years. So why did they decide to bring it to Brooklyn this year for the event?
My understanding from the very beginning was that when the Magnificat folks went from diocese to diocese, they heard wonderful things about Brooklyn.
Of course.
And they wanted to bring the next event to Brooklyn. So we met about 2 years ago, and from that point on, it was Brooklyn all the way.
Of course, of course. I mean, and why not, right?
Why not? I
Now,
agree.
there are going to be some important headliners in attendance, and I want to read this because I want to make sure I have everyone. We have the Bishop of Brooklyn, Nicholas DiMarzio, Cardinal Sean O'Malley. We're going to have Archbishop Christophe Pierre, who is the Pope's U.S. ambassador. What exactly will they be addressing? What issues will they be discussing?
Well, first of all, they're going to be speaking about the many areas of evangelization that help all of us here in the diocese and beyond. So they're going to talk about the great joy that comes from living a gospel-led life. They're going to be talking about ways in which we can encounter Christ each and every day of our lives. And they're going to be bringing us the good news about all the benefits that Magnificat brings to the people who use it.
Very important issues, especially in these times, right? Well, the Magnificat Foundation, they've been entrusted with some very special relics. What do these saints mean to the foundation? What do they represent to all of us? How do we relate to that?
So St. Therese, her family, and all the saints related to our liturgical and spiritual lives really give us examples of what it means to be a follower of Christ. So the whole theme of evangelization calls us to a greater encounter. And these saints, and of course their relics, give us a real reason to celebrate their lives, but also their impact on the greater church.
You've spoken a lot about evangelization during the course of this interview, so I kind of really want to drive it home even further.
Sure.
Is now a good time as any to really start moving people into the Catholic faith?
Well, we know that the church is undergoing a number of challenges these days, but it's most important, I believe, that we continue to bring Christ to other people, that we continue to evangelize, that we continue to show people the best. And that's really what this Magnificat Day and pilgrimage is all about. The best of liturgical art, music, a community of people, 3,500 people gathered in one place to really celebrate our faith. So I think it's there's no better time than the present, as I like to say.
And while we both appreciate what the Magnificat event is going to do for us, in the time we have left, I have to ask you, what do you and your office do to promote the evangelization in our diocese, especially in these difficult times?
Well, we really try to offer as many opportunities as people in the parishes to participate in initiatives, programs. Quite popular this past year were these small faith-sharing groups. These were opportunities for people to come together, groups of 8, 10, 12, to really listen to the gospel and react to that, give their personal expression of what it means to be a Catholic in the world today.
All right, well, I want to bring this full circle before we end. I just want to say that this weekend's event at the King's Theater is sold out, and a full report will be on Currents News. But as for now, I really do thank you for being with us.
Oh,
you have to visit more often. It was so good talking to you.
It was so good being here, and I want to thank everybody for all the work that you do.
Thank you, Ted. We appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Police in Scotland have released a list of potentially offensive symbols, and that includes the Vatican flag. In a restricted document from the police force, officials stated that flying the flag of the Holy See in a so-called provocative manner could amount to a crime. The police declined to disclose specific examples of what would constitute provocative. Other flags on the police list include Israel and Palestine. Pope Francis making a generous donation to Indonesia. The Holy Father sent $100,000 to assist with the first phase of the rescue and medical aid mission. A 7.5 magnitude earthquake struck the island, followed by a tsunami hitting that country, which leveled the coastal city of Palu. Over 1,000 people died in last week's earthquake and tsunami in Indonesia, and that number is expected to rise. This while the desperate search for survivors and victims continue. Matt Rivers reports from Palu.
The village of Petobo is gone. Earthquakes destroy a lot of places, but not many end up that way by being sucked into the ground. When this one struck, the land acted more like a lake. It's called liquefaction. So what happened during this natural phenomenon was that the ground that was solid underneath these houses and the people and the cars of this village essentially became like a liquid, which meant all the things on top got subsumed into the ground below while mud rose up. And the result is this hellscape that rescuers have really no chance of digging through quickly, which means that we know there are still people buried inside this ground that have no chance of being rescued. The destruction here is utterly complete. 744 houses were buried, many with people inside. The searchers looking for them are exhausted and outmatched. All of that is the reality facing those who made it out. In this makeshift tent across town, we find an extended family, all from Petobo, sharing one tent. To a person, it's story after story of just surviving.
I saw houses rolling and the ground breaking open. A lot of people fell inside. It's thanks to God I am alive now with my children.
Muriatin Galanu knew the only way to escape was to take her family and run.
We fell down into the mud. It looked like the mud was sucking us in. The mud was alive.
They pulled their way out. Her parents didn't. She believes they're among the dead. Rizky Putri got stuck in the mud as well, holding her 3-month-old daughter. The mud got up to her chest before she was saved.
I lifted up my baby. I was so lucky because there were people who helped me.
She made it out, but her mother was stuck too. Her mom told her to leave.
I said, "My daughter, please just leave me. Let me die here. The most important thing is to save your baby. Your baby is much more important." But she said, "No, no, I want you to live." I surrendered.
And 3 generations of family made it out safely. It was against the odds for all of the people in the tent to make it out. Their cuts and bruises and bandages show that. They call themselves the fortunate ones. Here on Sulawesi, calling yourself lucky has a low bar these days. Matt Rivers, Palu, Indonesia.
Melania Trump is continuing her tour of Africa. She's in Malawi as part of her first international solo trip. The First Lady spent time with students from a primary school where she donated supplies and soccer balls. She's also expected to visit Kenya and Egypt to promote women and children's health. Still ahead on Currents News, just how well do people do on the U.S. Citizenship Test? The answer may surprise you. Plus, a tattered flag is restored, how Old Glory is bringing new hope to a Cincinnati family when we return. A new study says marijuana could be worse than alcohol for young people. The American Journal of Psychiatry tested the memory and reasoning of 3,800 teens who smoke marijuana. The results? Cannabis affected their long-term cognitive abilities more than alcohol. Scientists say they need to do more research to understand how and why the brain is affected by early marijuana use. If you had to take a U.S. citizenship test today, how would you fare? Just a third of Americans got passing marks in a recent survey. Among the questions missed, name the 13 original colonies, identify Benjamin Franklin, and cite the cause of the Cold War. A new study by the Woodrow Wilson National Fellowship Foundation shows most U.S. citizens have a lack of knowledge about the questions found on the U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services test. Passing requires a score of 60. Only 36% of the 1,000 citizens they surveyed hit that mark. It was windblown, worn, and tattered. A now famous U.S. flag shown on camera being battered by wind and rain from Hurricane Florence is heading to Cincinnati. A family won the badly damaged Stars and Stripes in an online auction, and Evan Millward explains how they are using Old Glory to honor a loved one.
Sometimes the storm seems too much.
Every one of us, we all have challenges in our life.
And we aren't sure.
We all have storms that we need to get through.
We can weather it.
But just stay courageous and stand tall and stay firm.
And then we find inspiration from Mike Caruso and his family. A flag that just wouldn't let go came at just the right time.
Saying that's Kevin. He was a fighter. And again, in our lives, how this inspires us as a family, just never quitting.
Caruso's oldest brother, Kevin, was in his own storm, the last weeks of a battle with prostate cancer. After Hurricane Florence cleared out, this flag was taken down from the Frying Pan Tower off the North Carolina coast. It had earned a nickname online weeks earlier. The nickname was Kevin, and it was now up for auction.
Be resilient and fight. And just never give up. And see, that's the legacy that Kevin has done for his children and grandchildren.
Kevin Caruso died Sunday morning. His family won the bid for the flag Sunday night. All the Caruso boys went to Elder. Kevin graduated in 1972, Mike a year later.
To hear his brother Mike talk about that flag and what it stood for, I think it was just a beautiful piece.
And it has brought that alumni community together already. And that's really what Mike Caruso wants this all to be about. He'll get the flag this week and mount it. And whether it ends up staying in Cincinnati or moving, there is a museum that's interested. Caruso says he hopes it inspires.
I have to believe that somewhere through that there are going to be individuals that see this and read this and maybe that will change their heart and their minds about things in their life.
Wow, well, I'm definitely inspired. The $10,900 his family spent on the auction has been pledged to the American Red Cross. That is Currents News. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Liz Falbless. Set your DVR to record this program so that you never miss it, because we are putting your faith in the news. Hope to see you again next time.